meant to serve as a decoder ring for all that bootstrap bullshit they keep trying to sell us. That's right. Whenever you hear some well-paid commentator telling folks that the answer to all their problems is just to work harder, what they're really saying is, I don't care about your circumstances. Your circumstances don't matter to me. You don't matter to me. Whenever you hear some rich asshole from a think tank go on and on about the virtues of the free market while ignoring those ill-affected by any semblance of a free market, what they're really saying is, as long as I ain't gotta see them, as long as I ain't gotta be them, fuck them. And I'm sorry if that sounds crass, but that's about as accurate a translation as I can give. And this song is about that unfortunate translation. So the next time you turn on your radio or your television or go on the internet and you hear some fool say, let the market sort it out, well then you'll know what it is they really saying. You'll know what it is they really saying.
I do not feel that I was born corrupted, as I do not believe in original sin. However, I have been corrupted by life, by circumstance, and by my own foolishness. These things trouble me the most. I want to be pure, but I fall so short. Corrosion, rust, death, and failure haunt my every breath and step, and yet I live and write while corrosion bites. It shows there's some strength in me. Possibly, maybe, decidedly, I will persist. The end.
Get yourself together before it's too late. Oh, don't mind me. I'm just relaxing here. I got this around 15 years ago in Baltimore. I was actually with Dave and Judy Price in some weird shop that had some old stuff. It's called the Man of Venus. And I'll tell you, I took this out today because I'm about ready to try anything. Try these, stop these son of a bitches. Man from Venus. Yeah. We may need him. Doesn't work, though. Well, tonight was the night where we were supposed to see Dave broadcasting from the strip club with Stormy Daniels. So let's go his way and let's try to figure out if we're there. So without any further ado, as I usually say, I know, Veg, you say that is an overused term, but you know, we'll just do that anyway. And Dave. Dave? What's going on? I'm switching my scenes here and it's not going. We'll just do this. Dave, wake up. Whoa! Where's the strip club that you promised us?
First of all, what would you say? That was probably, you were 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes in, right? And you made your first error. It wasn't a strip club. It was the Triple X Exotica convention.
Oh,
Number one. Now,
sounds like the same.
they're supposed to say, they say that love has should not have a price tag on it. But when I learned it would be $89 for me to get in there, and then another $20 to have the pleasure of having my picture taken with the woman I feel second most in love with in the world, Miss Daniels.
You sure it's love? Not something else?
No question about that. First love is my wife, Judy. Second love is Stormy Daniels. Third love.
Or do you mean like love for sale type of thing?
No, love for sale. No, she's out of the porn industry now. She's doing
yeah,
readings,
but I don't think
actually. She's doing.
She's out of.
She's doing the tarot cards, and I could have had a reading today in her hotel room, actually, for tarot cards. My former student Bob Headley was there. I'll check with him tomorrow. He had a private reading, but that was $100.
Whoa! Let's rewind for a little bit, Dave.
Yes.
Tarot cards.
And that, yeah, where you read the fortunes, the fortune tellers.
Yeah. Well, what gives with that?
Well, it's a rather long story. I'll do the short version. Miss Daniels was staying in a place in New Orleans, held up for a while, and apparently this was a haunted place, and she had a psychic experience, and now she's able to help people predict their future. So I don't know, Brian. I would say this though. It's always nice to see her back, even though I didn't get to see her in DC, because all joking aside, I think, I am in the alternate universe. Wow. It's a megaverse.
Dave, is there any way can you turn your mic up just a little bit, believe it or not?
Oh yeah. No,
just
no
a little
problem.
bit, not a lot, just a little bit.
Oh yeah, sure.
Just a little bit.
Is that better?
Perfect.
That shows you how good you are. I didn't even touch it. Well, anyway. No, I can't. Okay. Anthony, condolences. I see that, unfortunately, in the continuing pandemic, and I'm not saying that the death that you are grieving tonight was in the pandemic, but there's certainly a lot of that going on. I think we kind of hoped, Brian, or at least I did, maybe we'd be a little bit further on. But I always like that saying you said. I don't know if it's original with you, probably not. I mean, not that you don't have original sayings, but the idea of nature batting last, nature does.
Well, of course, that's Guy McPherson.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, I don't care who came from, because I really think, I don't care who says it. I think that's really spot on, because the idea that, we somehow are superior to nature, it's a very humbling experience when you find out you're not. And we're not going to talk a lot tonight about the pandemic. I just thought, to me, I understand fully, that America has lost its goddamn mind, or 74 million Americans have lost their mind. So many of them are vaccinated, some aren't. But, what worries me as you look around the world, Africa, according to the statistics, 6% vaccinated. We will not be safe until the numbers are. Now, I saw Keith with us tonight from New Zealand.
Right?
Yeah,
We got people
and
from all over. We got our Canadians here, several
that's good.
Canadians, people from the north, the south, the east, the west.
great.
At
What
least
happens is,
8 people here tonight.
oh man, that's
Actually,
wow.
we have more. We have 12, not including us.
Do you realize that Rachel Maddow, not that I'm comparing us to Rachel Maddow, has 12 people just getting her ready and prepped for audience. But anyway, yeah, more serious about that. As I've said earlier on the show, I'm really excited about my son coming home, my daughter-in-law, my grandchildren who I haven't seen. They were pre-teens when they left. They're going to be teenagers when they return. 2 years in Australia. I was talking to Michael the other day, though, and just a difference between the two countries, or at least a portion of the country. He's in Canberra, which is the capital, and that state is 97% vaccinated. United States here, varies a little bit, but 70% maybe total, maybe. And then Africa, 6%. All it says is we're going to be dealing with this for a long, long time, and it affects all of us. And let's hope that we continue to be safe and wise and do what we need to do so that we can gather together on these Saturday nights that are pretty special for me, just for a place to go, and the idea of really having good people in the Divided We Stand group. And
We have a special. Can we have a special shout out tonight, Dave, to Veg
Sure.
again? Because Veg, I've been watching your 10th anniversary specials, and he did. Dave and I discussed this, Veg. He gave us a really nice shout out. I really do appreciate what you said. It was very nice of you. Not many people do that. I know Sandy does that and all, but and thank you, Sandy. But we really do appreciate that.
And Brian, something, of course, we can help out Veg and Sandy with, certainly push their show,
Right.
or shows.
Environmental Coffee
do
House and the Vegematic
Do you know if
Show.
anybody? Do you know if anybody else, any of our other regulars, or even those on the Facebook page that don't come regularly? Do you know if anybody else has a show? I mean, it would always be nice, if we find that out.
You know what? I don't know. I think most of the people who show up do not have shows,
Yeah.
which is fine. But I could be mistaken.
No,
from time
well,
to
I
time,
just
we don't know
yeah.
who's going
So,
to show
well,
up.
again, I would ask anybody, in the group if you know anyone who has a show who's part of this, let us know, because it is kind of I mean, there's communities and communities and communities and broadening out, and we do this on YouTube. I would include podcasters, anyone who does what we do in any way, shape, or form, because it's nice to have an audience. Very, very nice to have an audience. And so again, everyone tonight, I do thank you. Brian, we kind of have a tradition here.
Right.
So I'll ask the question tonight that I normally start with. What has you somewhere between terrified, worried, and concerned this week? And there's enough to fit those categories every week. But what specifically has you got up in arms this
All
week?
right. If I had to have one of these Divided We Stand meters that, reflect my blood pressure, I think this week I returned to that state that I had 2 years ago when I went to Jeff Van Drew's Mays Landing office. And for those of you out there who aren't familiar with Jeff Van Drew, he is a congressman from the 2nd Congressional District, which is my district. And I think it covers 4 counties. And unfortunately, the one county, I think it was Cape May or whatever, they just all go for Van Drew, and he ends up winning each time. Now, again, he was a Democrat, switched parties, and he was all with Trump. Now he's causing trouble again. Now, I think I've shown a video of the protest, 2 protests I went to against Van Drew. Oh, no, it was one for the Postal Service and one against Van Drew. But I'm going to show you something, because I think you have to see it to believe it, what he's saying. And it almost felt like he was attacking me personally, but not so much. But yeah, I think it's best that I just show everybody this, and we'll take a peek at this. Let me get a screen here from the internet and see how it goes. You won't like it. I'm gonna have to put Lou back on, Dave. Okay. So we're going to watch Jefferson Van Drew, named after former slave owner Thomas Jefferson. So let's check this guy out and see what he has to say.
Representative Van Drew.
I first want to, like everybody else, commend Representative Salazar for doing this. This is of extreme importance, and I'll tell you why. We understand and we see the extremes of communism. We know what it's like to see the tanks rolling down in China. We know to see Russia build its arms and forces up at the border. We understand what they're doing. But what is also important and is amazing is that we even have to have this press conference. I am almost shocked that we have to have it, yet it is necessary. To think only a short number of years ago, we would almost laugh at the idea that we have to have a press conference to explain to our young people that communism isn't good, that communism will destroy our country. But that is where we are at, and there is a reason. Let's talk about the subtleties of what's happening to this country. We're taking the names of great men out of our cities and out of our towns. I was named after Thomas Jefferson. My name is Jefferson Van Drew. I named my son Jefferson Van Drew. Jefferson was a great man. He was a product of his time, but he was still a great man. In New York City, they took his bust down. All across this country, we're taking the names of great leaders, of fighters for freedom, of individuals, men and women who bled and fought and stood for this country. We have people in Congress. We have people in Congress who really don't believe in the American way, don't believe in American freedom, don't believe in American independence. It's subtle. It's not even that subtle anymore, to be honest with you. It's pretty obvious. So we see all of this around us. We know that in universities, if you have a very pro-American stance or a conservative viewpoint, you probably won't get a chance to speak. You probably won't get to give a commencement address. Let's really tell it how it is. This country is at the precipice. We are on the edge. And this is a big piece of it. We are going to have to decide that either that we are the America that we know and love, or that we're going to change. Many professors, many universities, many educational systems want us to change. And what we all are talking about is we're trying to make it clear to our children and our grandchildren that if we make this change, all the wonderful freedoms, all the greatness, the freedom to have your own faith, the freedom to do well in your own economy, the freedom to believe in whatever it is you want to accomplish in your life, and your freedom to raise your family the way you want to, and to say what you want to, and to do what you want to. You shouldn't take that for granted. Every time I go into a classroom or speak to a group, I speak about American exceptionalism.
The last thing I want.
An American exceptionalist says that America is better. It's
American
different.
exceptionalism.
It's the greatest country in the world. I will say to you right now, America is the greatest country this world has ever seen. It is the greatest country on the face, literally, of the earth. And we love Ronald Reagan, and one of his other great statements was, besides loss of freedom was only one generation away, he spoke about the shining city on the hill. So the bottom line, it's up to us. There's nobody else. It's up to all of you in media. It's up to me and all these good folks here that represent people in the United States Congress and in the United States Senate. It's up to parents. Parents call me up sometimes. They say, I'm upset. I don't even know what to do, the way the country is moving and what is happening. And I say, you know, one of the most important things you can do when your children or your grandchildren, when they come home, look at what they're learning. And if they're not learning about freedom, if they're not learning about what happened in Cuba, if they're not learning what happens in China, if they're not learning what's happened in North Korea, then you better make sure that you teach them. It is now our responsibility. Nobody else, every single one of you, it's in your hands. Take that responsibility and grasp it for all the men and women who died and bled and gave so much to this country, for the great leaders of the past, and I swear, I hope, the great leaders of the future. I thank you for doing this. God bless you.
My duty.
Okay, I'm about to explode right now, and maybe it's best that you start, Dave.
I will
because
start.
I mean, you could unpack this thing at every 10 seconds. He says something. He's just all over the
All
place.
right, look, yeah, it's very simple. That's the Republicans' greatest hits packaged
From
into
a former
one.
Democrat.
Well, he was only look.
Right.
You know, I knew him before he was Jefferson Van Drew congressman. I covered him years and years ago. Okay, and he was a charlatan then, and he's a charlatan now. A few comments I'd like to make here. One, tonight I'm going to speak a little bit about my former profession and how disappointed I'm getting in it. You know, I know how hard it can be to be a news person. I do. I was one from, almost, well, more than a decade. And it's a tough job, just like teaching is a tough job. Well, actually, just like everything is tough. Okay, there's no such thing as an easy job. It's just that certain jobs have different forms of toughness or difficulty, if you will. But if I were a reporter at the end of that, I would just ask Mr. Van Drew one question. Jefferson, call him since he's so proud of his name. Jefferson, let me ask you a question. Who do you think is more of a danger, an immediate danger to America? The communists, which you spoke about a moment ago, or the American domestic terrorist insurrectionists who took over the building in front of which you are standing, and your thoughts on that? And of course, my expectation would be it would dodge the question. But I think one of the things you have to do, he says, well, we all have to. Yeah, one of the things we have to do is keep holding these people to the fire. Is it going to make a difference? I don't know, but it's going to make a difference for me. I would ask him again. The last time I saw Mr. Van Drew, I really did feel a kind of good about the conditions where I saw him. It was in Union Station here in Washington, D.C. He was coming through with his entourage, and I went up to him and I said, hi. I always go nicely. I said, hi, Congressman Van Drew. You probably don't remember me. My name's Dave Price. I used to be a reporter. And of course, he indicated he did. He did not, I'm sure. But and then I proceeded to tell him how disgusted I was with him for changing parties and being with Trump. And of course, immediately his aides hustled him away. Let's see. What else did I listen to there?
I'm going to interrupt for 1 second here because
yeah.
I'm going to let you unpack all of that. But the one thing that bothered me the most was at the end, being a teacher, and that he basically alluded to getting the parents to look at what their kids are teaching. Now, what teacher's in the worst position right now if they're going to do that? Because I teach Russian, and I take liberties when I teach and I explain about the history and and I won't even get into the historical aspect because the guy knows nothing. But they're trying to change the curricula across the country and putting this into the curriculum, this whatever, and this goes to show you that again that whole theme about the United States is browning. We don't have the votes. So now we're going to indoctrinate the kids and we're going to go after the teachers. And how do you do it? You get the parents to look at whatever they see. And so no matter what they see, it'll be all semantic fiat bullshit. They're going to say, he's a communist, she's a communist. And that's it. Now, you think that's a joke, but that's what's going to happen.
No, I don't think it's a joke. I think we've already lived through it once. This is reminiscent of the McCarthy era, certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's my thing is, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. Well, this is rhyming with the McCarthy era, but America's in a different place, and I don't think it will stick as much as the Republicans think it will stick. And I'm going to kind of go in order, so I'll deal with that in a moment. But let's see, the American way. They're fond of saying that. So I would ask him, my second question would be, I'm going to try to understand here the American way, sir. So the American way you're telling me is genocide, take the land and kill the people that are there. And one of the good ways to do that, sir, is to give them smallpox. And then when they have a white flag surrendering, you kill them. That's a good way to do that. Oh, and before that, let's take people out of Africa and bring them here and make them slaves for a while, and then we'll Jim Crow them, and then we'll, do systemic racism. But 402 years, the white man needs to do that. Oh yeah, I almost forgot the Alamo, man. Remember the Alamo, where we went in and literally invaded? That was Mexico. It wasn't America. Come on. And the list could go on and on and on and on and on and on. American Way, and of course, my pet peeve when I hear the term that the I guess they're still calling themselves Republicans. I don't know what I even call them. American exceptionalism. Yeah, we're exceptionally bad. That's
Right.
number one. No, we're not exceptionally
Greatest
bad. But
country on the earth.
No.
That's
What we
part of the
are-
problem.
What we are is this. We are exceptionally bad at following the ideals that can be taken from what the founding fathers did, despite the fact that they were men, and I make capital M, men of their time. You did have a couple women like Abigail Adams speaking out, but there were nobody was powerful. You really don't see an influential. What do you see? Frederick Douglass becomes really the first black intellectual who actually gets a voice. We're exceptional. Look, every country feels they're exceptional. Mr. Dylan, whom I admire greatly, not as a singer, but as a songwriter. I passed up a chance December 2nd, he was back in town. And the last time I saw him, I didn't understand a word he sung. So I said, I'll pass on this time. But he's written some wonderful songs. And one of the ones early on in his career he did with God on Our Side. And I look at every country thinks that. But we think we have this direct pipeline to a God. And unfortunately, the God of the GOP, or at least the one they present, doesn't exist.
And how many
That's number-
countries do you think Van Drew has actually traveled to?
I know he once went to Dividing Creek. Is that a country? Oh no, that's in Cumberland County. No,
country.
You know what, Brian? That would be a very interesting question. Now, congressmen do travel, okay,
Right,
but they
travel.
go on junkets, designed for, whatever, not to really go. My question would be, and I'd follow up on that. My question would be, okay, Mr. Van Drew, where did you stay in those countries? What did you do in those countries? Did you go, if you were in Africa, did you go in the Maasai villages? If you were in Bangladesh, did you talk to, where poverty would make our
Right,
poverty?
but it's just cheap talk, Dave, what he's saying.
Well,
look, this guy's probably has
but here's the
investments
thing.
all over China. I mean,
Brian, look, here's the thing. Of course it's cheap talk, but people believe it, okay? And what's sad is that they do believe that. Now, of course, you got offended, as I did, about the learning. But I also got offended, all of you in the media. All of us, I mean, if I were still in the media, in a way, we are, okay? We're not, getting paid for this, but this is a form of media. So all of us are supposed to parrot what you say. What does that mean? And I really, I'll talk more at length later about a specific news person tonight who deserves all the lack of accolades we can give him. But I think listening to that and watching that, you're absolutely right to get irate and angry. Now, what do you do about it? Well, Brian, you do have more of a chance of doing something than I do, or than anyone else listening tonight is. You do live in his district. Now,
Yes, I
you only
do.
get one vote. I think I know how you'll vote. Ronnie, your wife, only gets one vote. I think I'll know how she votes. Unfortunately, the district is somewhat stacked Republican. But something I would suggest that you get a small group and work to get the minorities out who would be willing or usually in agreement with voting in terms of a Democrat over Republican.
well, Dave, I'm Les Hall, right? You know Les.
Oh yeah, I know Les. Yeah.
Let me see if I can get his book here. Yeah, I was asking him that question because Les is a guy I work with, folks, if you're
Right.
interested. And Les has a really good, pulse on what's going on in Bridgeton. And he said that basically the minority vote came out for Kennedy, but there are a lot of things going on behind the scenes in these other counties,
Well,
and there was no way that she was going to be able to pull this thing out. And I think part of the problem with Amy Kennedy, I mean, she used the name, nice enough person. I spoke with her myself, on a direct face-to-face thing with the Bridgeton teachers, but she wasn't tough. You know what I mean? This guy is spineless. You know what I mean? And he will do whatever he wants to do to get ahead. You have to attack somebody like that, and I felt that she didn't do that. I don't know what else to do, but maybe just the votes aren't there. I mean, Bridgeton's
well,
not enough.
I said, well, if you look at, again, we're talking about an area that we know, and the people listening are certainly, Keith in New Zealand's going, what? No, unfortunately, there were even gerrymandered districts before there were gerrymandered districts, if you can understand that. Basically, the cities in Cumberland County, there are three of those, Millville, Vineland, and Bridgeton, ranging in size from like 20 to, I don't even know what, Bridgeton is the smallest, 20, Millville's more, and Vineland's a little bit more. But they're
Well,
just like
Vineland's
the rest.
split, isn't it, in terms of
Well,
like
what happens?
East Vineland's wealthier, they're Trumpers,
that's what I'm saying. But even there, right? But if you go out to East Vineland, which is interesting, it still is rural. Okay, I mean, Vineland is the largest municipality land-wise in the state of New Jersey.
right?
Okay,
It's like
but
Rome, New York is like the same thing. Like,
it incorporated all these areas. So really, what's playing out, Brian, and very much in your congressional district, is what's playing out across the country, where you have a large minority population, but you have maybe just as large or even larger group of wealthy people down at the shore, traditionally Republicans, and then you have you spoke of the farmers, rural people, traditionally Republicans.
The fishermen,
And
they're all Republican.
well, that's and so what happens? What happens?
The Bay
is-
people, basically.
right? And of course, it's interesting coming from there. As I mentioned on the show before, my mother, my father was apolitical. My mother was a Republican, but she was the kind of Republican that would have been an Eisenhower Republican. All right, when you could still be a decent person and be a Republican. My uncle was big in the Republican circles. He was a contributor, etc. And it would be my cousin. We call him Little Harry because everybody's named Harry in the family. He told me during the Trump run that my mother would turn over in her grave if she knew what I would, if I was doing now. And I said, I don't think so, Harry. I think because that she would be turning over in her grave knowing what you're doing now. And they were the last words we ever spoke, and it'll probably be the last words we ever speak. So, Bridgeton, the Bridgeton area, part of a larger area, and of course, New Jersey is viewed as a solid Democratic state. The last gubernatorial election, it's still a solid Democratic state, but its Democratic votes come from up north, not down south.
Right.
So, unfortunately, or
It's an
fortunately,
extension of
however,
New York, North Jersey.
up there and down here, it's an extension.
Thankfully,
of,
because otherwise this would be a Republican state.
and people say a lot of times to me, well, why do you keep going back to history? Because if we don't, right, we don't understand what's going on now. And the reason that our area, which really is Southern by nature, is the fact that in the 1930s and 1940s, when war, depression, but the glass manufacturing industry refused to hire blacks. They just refused to hire blacks, and they couldn't get workers, right? Because off in the military and such. So they went down to the coal mines of West Virginia and Tennessee, somewhat Kentucky, but basically West Virginia, Tennessee, and imported striking mine workers or workers who were unhappy, developing 17 generations of black lung disease. And what happens is we suddenly find ourselves in southern New Jersey, living in a town that could be just as home in your favorite Senator Mr. Manchin's state, because it really is. It really is that. So yeah, Mr. Van Drew's certainly not going to win any awards. But what I did find interesting about there is a resemblance.
They
there.
asked me, yeah. That was one of those half and halves.
Uh,
He's the better half.
no, I thought you would explain some of your prolific, prolific, some of your trends in the bedroom, but half and half. Never mind.
Not tonight.
So what happens, Brian, is, but I think it's also interesting. Mr. Van Drew may fall victim to something else. Have you noticed? He was one of the 13 that voted for the infrastructure.
Right. Maybe this
Now-
is why he's coming out and doing. And by the way,
Exactly.
did you see that those people behind him with this kind of things going on with these
Well,
Republicans?
I mean that's politics. Okay, look, there. You remember whenever Trump appeared, there was a black guy behind him. He just traveled city. to
And they'll say
city.
blacks for Trump, you know.
You know, but so yeah, I mean, all that's political theater, and unfortunately, you know, people still buy it. I can't explain why, except they do. I'm always skeptical of any press conference ever held because it is a show. It is a show. So Mr. Van Drew showed today to me, or showed just a moment ago to me, and I'd seen the clip before. He showed to me that I would never vote for him under any circumstances, but I knew that before. So, you know, it'll happen. He'll run, and you know, 2022. Unfortunately, the pundits are already telling us what's going to happen, and you know what? We might not even get to 2022.
So how this thing, Dave? This whole thing. You know, we saw this thing. This actually, you posted it. This here, and
yeah.
they seem to really be pushing this. You know.
Well, look,
And
there-
they bring up the communism again. He brought up Ronald Reagan. This whole crap, you know, and we forget that we fought alongside the communists against the fascists. And of course, they added the word totalitarianism. But this thing's getting really old, but it's not old because it's so effective. And again, I feel threatened as a teacher, especially me, because of the subject.
well, Brian, I'm not going to argue with
I
you.
teach.
I don't know that you're any more threatened than anyone else, except I understand what you're saying about the Russian. I'll tell you who's really the forefront. Well, it's all teachers, first of all. And of course, once again, the Trumpian GOP has taken a decent idea and perverted it. Trump perverts everything he touches, and now the GOP follows suit. Parents should have a right to speak out or express their opinions about what their children are taught. Okay, but the problem is, as is so often with the Republicans, they just think they have the answer, right? And it's not. Certainly, you
Well, yeah.
can teach.
Well, he wants them to come home and show them what they're taught, but at the same time, he's telling us what they should teach.
Well, there you
There's
are.
the duplicity
Okay.
in there.
Oh, duplicity. You almost said that with shock coming from a Republican. Look, if they're nothing else, they're duplicitous, and they're a bunch of hypocrites. We know that, and there are many other things too. What worries me is there are some places where school districts are not receptive to parents. Okay. I used to be a pet peeve of mine when I taught, and I understand a lot of teachers, Brian, and I'm sure you've seen them too, I never wanted to meet with parents, and I think that's a mistake. You know, I think you always meet with them. If nothing else, my theory was, and it worked for Muhammad Ali, so I thought it might work for me. Just rope-a-dope them. What I used to call rope. Let them complain all night. Let them complain all day. Yes, yes, yes. And then when they get everything out, then you can have your say, and it doesn't mean you're going to win. But I think you know, if you shut them out, and I now, of course, now it's cross lines. I mean, when you've got death threats, you've got board members all across the country, Brian, resigning. You've got teachers terrified in the
Leaving. I
classroom.
mean, teachers are leaving.
Well,
completely.
you know, you're saying you're with Russian. Look at the history teachers. How the hell are you going to teach history?
And even
under
with
the-
business now, because they still teach business,
Well, that's
even
part
that
of it.
can be a problem because, you know,
And-
what
and
way
look-
am I teaching it? You know.
My area, of course, is language arts, communication, English, and there's just every day you're seeing more. One congressman in Texas, I think, what do you have? 818 books, some fantastic number. He wanted to ban from libraries. You're seeing it every day. we've talked on the show, probably maybe even overly much about, Loudoun County, which is next to me where I live. I live in Arlington County. Loudoun County has really become the epicenter of this parent-led school movement. They've actually called for and have signed petitions for the resignation of the superintendent and 6 of the 9 board members. So yeah, education is going to be in for a rough haul. Forget about, and let's be honest, Brian. Let's be honest. The last time education was normal in the United States, the last month was February 2020. It hasn't been normal since then.
Let me just quickly say this, Dave.
Sure.
We have 24 viewers right now. That's
Good, great.
pretty good. But if you're out there and you haven't subscribed, please do so. We really appreciate it. We do not monetize whatsoever, nor shall we. And we'd also appreciate if you would join our Facebook page. It is a group page called Divided We Stand. You do have to agree to the rules, but they're simple rules, basically. Make sure there's no bigotry in anything that you say. We're here to support the party in general. A few other things, but they're just very, very common sense rules. So we do really appreciate it. And we ask that you share this. If anything you can do for us, we don't charge for anything. We don't want to. Please share.
And I just want to follow up on something you said there about supporting the party. You sound a little communist there now. Basically, by supporting the party, what we're saying is you really can't support the other guys.
Right.
We do believe we're divided, we stand. And as I've said, it wouldn't be a show if I didn't say it. Every day that Joe Biden is president of the United States is a better day than if Donald Trump were there. And I would go so far as to say any person that I've seen in the Republican Party who is interested in sitting there is better than them. Okay? Now, perfection, no. Certainly, shortcomings, and I've expressed them about Biden. It's not like we speak in unison, one voice. It's not that. But again, and the other thing I like to stress to people, you did it, but I want to stress again, every week, because I get to see who asks to join as well as you, and just the people, they don't fill out the one question. It's basically one question, really. I mean, absolutely, almost, and they don't do it. And so what happens? They don't get in. Now, so if you do anyone out there, don't.
Thank you, Artificial Morphosman.
Yeah, thank you. You know what? Such great names there. I can't even read them.
They're fantastic.
No, I said there you really are. Some way. But the idea is, the other thing I would say to the people listening tonight, or I've said, written on Facebook, if you do invite someone, just point out to them they have to answer that question. Because
we have so many people who want to be part of the group, but they don't respond.
Well, or, and sometimes, and I'm sure this happens too. I know it happens to me. Somebody will send me, an invite, and sometimes I'll just do it because, I feel obligated. It's not a political thing, but, for their, some, not even a position, but a stand or something that they're taking. So, I mean, I'm sure we get some of those too. But, again, if we are, as I view it, in a war, so far a war mostly of words, but certainly weapons are involved. We need a number of things. First of all, people together and people to support one another.
So, Dave, you did ask me what was bothering me tonight, but there's got to be something bothering you, and we haven't spoken for 5 or 6 days. So, I'm going to turn it over to you. What's got you bothered?
Well, actually, I say I'm following stories. The only stories I follow are those that bother me. So I think I'm going to kind of go in, not in order of importance tonight, but maybe in order of the stories breaking. So I don't know if you saw today, Brian, we get the firing of Chris Cuomo.
Chris Cuomo, right.
At CNN. Now, Chris Cuomo should never have made it this far. Okay? If Chris Cuomo were any type of journalist, and I would tell him this, if the museum were still open and Chris would come in, as many as he did most people came in, at some point to check us out when we're there at the museum. I would have told Chris, I think you made a mistake. Now, I understand he has said quite honestly that family comes first. No problem with that. I understand that. But he has a job where that can't be.
Yeah, something called being a professional too.
Well, you can't
You don't
do
bring
that.
your shit to work.
So what he could have done, what he should have done, in my estimation, was have taken a leave of absence as soon as the charges were filed against his brother. So why didn't he? I think there were a couple reasons, and it is the main reason that I'm so opposed to news on television. It is not about delivering the news. It is about ratings. Okay. And the ratings soared when he and his brother would have the Brothers Show at that point. Now, at that point, both their stars are rising.
Right, they were both doing really, really well. Chris was sick, and Andrew was doing well with his press conference.
Well, if you remember correctly, there were calls for Andrew to replace Joe Biden. That he was
absolutely. I mean, I was actually
goodness.
buying that.
Well, yeah, I never was, just because I'd heard some things. I shouldn't even say I'd heard some things, but
I was
skeptical
searching for anybody with balls. You know what I mean?
Well,
because this was getting ridiculous.
The problem is, so often people with balls use them improperly on people without balls, and by that I mean women. And there's no question.
I mean,
no question.
I meant by that, I mean,
I know.
Metaphor, some seminal strength when it comes to, doing the right thing.
Unfortunately, next week, I'm toying with the idea, and I think I will. I'm not going to talk about this week, but Josh Hawley and his concerns about masculinity, and so it kind of ties into the Cuomo brothers here. Andrew, powerful. I think powerful men, especially in powerful positions. I guess you couldn't really be powerful, if you're a powerful man, if you weren't in a powerful position, tend to abuse that power. Now, Chris had to know that. Certainly, his profession is not. It's not unknown in television news for male to abuse their position with women. So, do I think he did wrong? Yes. Do I understand why he wanted to do it for his family? Yes. What was the answer? Take a suspension. And it wasn't like all, now again, most of, because again, the news networks and newspapers do this too. Magazines, you rally around your own, right? But I did like the fact that a couple of people at CNN did speak out against him. And they didn't speak out against him personally. They just said, as Jake Tapper said, I cannot imagine a world in which anybody in journalism thinks what Chris is doing is appropriate, and it wasn't. So I'm just glad that CNN, late to the party, but finally did join the party and got rid of him. And I think if anybody wonders about the relationship between news and ratings and politicians, the president of CBS News said when Trump was running first, he said, Donald Trump may not be good for America, but he sure is good for CBS News. So just remember that. Everybody take that, and that obviously I'm a print journalist, but I do think there's a difference between radio journalism, TV journalism, print journalism. And again, I've always favored print more than those because you don't get that superstar stature that you get sometimes that you're there. So that's one. Let's get rid of Chris. All right. Here's the one that's got me this week.
Okay.
Right? More than anything else. And it's still developing, this story, but we know more about it than some others. And that would be the school gun murder in Michigan, in the small town of Oxford, in which 4 students lost their lives and 6 other students were wounded and a teacher. So, but this is taking a very interesting turn. And what do I mean by that? So I'm going to go a little bit more in depth than I normally do with this. And look, so I'm going to call him Junior, if you don't mind, because I kind of disagree with the idea. Don't say their names. It makes copycat killers. But you're going to see at the end of this that I may be wrong in that. So I'm just going to call him Junior, okay? But of course, we'll name his parents. So Junior was the spawn of James and Jennifer. And the story begins, or this story, it doesn't begin, but the involvement begins here. On November 26th, James goes into a small gun store in the small town of Oxford, Michigan, and buys a 9mm Sig Sauer, which pretty deadly weapon. It's not a AK-47, but you can do some damn killing with it, as it was proven later. Now, Junior, the next day on his Facebook page, writes, and I quote, "Just got my new beauty today." Okay. The next day, Mom, Jennifer, writes on her social media page the following, quote, "Mom and Son Day, testing out his new Christmas present." Now, I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I would assume at that point it was the gun. They were at the gun range. So it was a gun, and a Christmas present means you're going to give it to someone. So I don't think the parents purchased a weapon for themselves. And so they were going to give it to Junior for Christmas. Well, that's all bad enough, but of course the story gets worse. We go to the day before the shooting, Brian, and you were talking before about as a teacher, so just imagine this, happening where you teach, where I taught. Anybody in America, if you're not a teacher, just imagine this is going on. So Junior comes in, and he's sitting there in his class, and the teacher observes him, right? And he's on his desk. He's got his phone going, right? And phones have been an issue at school, cell phones, since they made their debut. But she walked by, and I don't know yet whether she asked him or whether he showed her or she saw it. He was searching for ammunition for the Sig Sauer. Now, that indicates to me that he was not really paying attention to what was going on in class, and certainly was planning to get some ammunition for his Sig Sauer, remember the Christmas gift from his mother and father. So the mother was contacted by the school. Jennifer was contacted. And here's what investigators found was her response. She texted her son, "LOL, I'm not mad at you. You have to learn not to get caught." Let me repeat that. Confronted with information that her son is looking for ammunition and a gun, she says, "I'm not mad at you." Okay, maybe I would be furious, but if a child of mine did that, but okay, maybe. But you have to learn not to get caught. Well, I'd like to stop here, but I can't because, of course, the story gets worse and worse and worse. So that was the day before the shooting. 2 days before the shooting. The day of the shooting, again, none of these teachers have been identified, and they shouldn't be at this point. Teacher walks by, so I don't know if it's the same one or a different one, walks by his desk and looks down. He sees a note, and it contained a drawing of a semi-automatic handgun, and the handgun is pointing at these words, "The thoughts won't stop. Help me."
Mm-hmm. And they wouldn't even been able to guess that would be weekend plans. It's probably weekday plans that the guy has.
well, yeah, I mean, who knows? But the idea, and we'll come back. We'll analyze it later. I'm just going through
It's
the
it's
facts
sickening.
as they've been presented. That same thing that she witnessed on the desk also contained a drawing of a bullet with the words, quote, "blood everywhere," and a drawing of a person who appears to be shot and bloody. Okay, so this is the day before the shooting, and the parents, remember here, they're still involved in this story. James and Jennifer are called into school. Okay. And they have a meeting. Now, a
And
lot
you know
of
how they turn out sometimes too.
well, this was, and I kept looking. Now again, I kind of wondered, and we'll talk about this later about the outcome of this meeting. But apparently, it was not called with the principal, the assistant principal, or any disciplinarian. It was called by the school counselor. Okay, so I'm not saying anything against school counselors. I'm just thinking at this point, I think if it happened in Bridgeton, something like that, and most of the schools that I've worked at or been involved with, it probably would have principal. Or
Well,
assistant
Dave,
principal.
I'm going to tell you right now, with I'm going to go back to the Cherry Hill days with the Fort Dix 6 guys, the Dukas.
Right.
They did call the parents in. Those kids were never kicked out, and that just goes to show you.
Well,
I'm not saying they actually were going to do that kind of thing at that moment,
no,
but
but
we
I
know
think
that a lot of times they don't get kicked out, no matter
But
what they say.
I think what happens is worse than not getting kicked out. So they are in this office. I guess if it is indeed the counselor and the two parents and Junior. And I think the parents missed an opportunity here to ask a few questions, which they didn't ask. They didn't ask, "Son, do you have the gun on you?" Right? They didn't ask, if they didn't want to ask that directly, "Son, where is your gun?" or "Where is the gun?" or however they referred to it. And they didn't ask him, which I would have done, "Can I see your backpack?" Parents can do that. Now, I don't know what the school rules are. Different schools have different rules, which, we don't want authoritarian rule in schools. But man, if you got something like that, I don't know. I think that's legit. Empty your, at least, of course, in Bridgeton, again, referring to school, you teach in the school I taught, we had our own police force. So,
Right.
A policeman would, but in other schools, the administrator says, take it out. If you refuse, that's the end. But anyway, based on this whole conversation, the counselor's recommendation is, look, why don't you take Junior home? Parents refused. They walked out without him. Junior's sent back to class. And within a matter of, not too much time, he walks out of the bathroom and opens fire. Okay. I don't know if you saw, there's so many shocking videos you see on these, but there was one that was, I saw, it was, young people use TikTok a lot now.
Right.
And they were closing the door, and the kids were, terrified, obviously. And, but by closing the door, he did fire, I think, a couple shots in at the room, but nobody was hit. Okay. Now, of course, Junior was charged. He's charged as an adult with 4 counts of murder, 7 counts of attempted murder, and I believe 11 counts of terroristic threats, and more should be added. So he's been charged as an adult. Indeed, if he is found guilty, he will never see the light of day again for a long, long time. I can't say never because appeals are held. But
Unless he gets tried in Wisconsin.
well, Brian,
That's just a
I don't
joke.
wanna go there
That's
tonight.
just a
It's
joke,
I don't.
but-
No, it wasn't a joke. I told you before, and the problem with that is the Wisconsin jury, even though people don't like when I say this, the Wisconsin jury did follow the Wisconsin law. They did.
But then
Wisconsin-
nobody's ever going to get prosecuted the way the laws are set up.
In Wisconsin, Michigan's laws are different. That's what I'm saying, and that's part of the
Although
problem.
that worries me too because of northern Michigan. I don't know what's going on
Well,
there.
I understand that. But what happens is Suddenly now, the excuse me, God, coughing here. The prosecutor in charge of the case, Karen McDonald, looks at the evidence, and you know that saying that comes out, you know, whenever times are bad, you know, Mr. Rogers says his mom said, "Look for the heroes." Well, Karen McDonald's going to emerge as a hero in this story. And looking at the law, understanding the law, she says, "We're going to charge the parents. We're going to charge the parents," which is very unusual. To my knowledge, there might have only been one other charge in America of a school shooting where parents were charged. But it was pretty clear, you know.
What do you think about the NRA? They're going to get involved in that kind of issue?
Well, we'll come up with that. I don't speculate on things. I just what I
I
know.
have a feeling that they will.
Oh, they will. But I'm saying. So what happens is they go to arrest the parents, and lo and behold, the parents are nowhere to be found. So they initiate, a man and woman hunt, I guess, in this case.
And
A
by the
couple
way,
hunt.
didn't the parents call 911 after it all happened?
I'm
Try
gonna-
to
I got- I'll
inoculate themselves from criticism.
I will get to that because I'm doing it in chronological order. So what happens is they are discovered finally in Detroit, car outside, and so SWAT is dispatched, and indeed no shots are fired. They are arrested. And here's, you remember that, you know, how we were attacking it? I think legitimately so, the judge in the Kyle Rittenhouse case for his behavior. Well, this judge did the opposite of that. They were put before him, and the prosecution asked for bail, and he said that's not enough, and he put them both under $500,000 bail. And I think that was a proper decision and wise. They've already run once, right?
Right.
Now their defense attorney, who happens to have a long history of representing some really creepy characters. I'm sorry, but anyway, their defense attorneys. Oh no, it was just a misunderstanding. Yeah, right. Okay, they were going to give themselves up. Yeah, okay, whatever. Nina, I agree. That's something that I want to talk about when we get all this done. Now, here's where it really falls all apart too. Okay, so that's, you know, that we're waiting to see that stuff. But Brian, before this is where we are in America right now. Before his name was even identified by the authorities, but of course, school knew who he was, right? Schools, I mean, obviously, you know, you would know. Dozens of social media sites claiming to be possessed by Junior popped up all over, and some were spoofs. You know, kids think the oddest things are funny. Some were requesting money. It's just so you've got all that going on, and that speaks to the social media problem we have in America. Then, based on those and other threats, they got over 100 threats made to schools in Oakland County, which is the county where the town of Oxford was. And half the schools in Oxford closed the next day based on the possibility of something happening there similar to what had happened in the high school. Now, you mentioned earlier, didn't the parents do this? Didn't they
Right, with
do
the
something?
call they made to
And
911.
they did. What they did was, though, the wording's bad. The wording is really, really bad. Okay, now, again, maybe she was distraught. I don't know. She texted her son using his real name, Junior, don't you do it. Now, Brian, if somebody says, don't you do it, right, to someone, that means, to me, it indicates that they knew what was going to happen, right? So you say, well, okay, the parents got the gun. It was all there. And of course, I did a little bit more research to try to find out a little bit more about them. And guess who emerges in the story? Your favorite president, the 45th president of the United States of America.
Why did I think you were going to say that?
Donald Trump. Now, Granted, he has an ability because he perverts everything he touches, but he even perverts things before he touches them. I guess we saw them with Mr. Rittenhouse. You know, and he said Trump said, yeah, he's a pretty good guy. Yeah, okay, right. Anyway, so here's what we got. Jennifer, the mother, shortly after the 2016 election, she wrote a relatively long note to Donald Trump, and in which she claimed that she was having to skip car insurance payments to hire a tutor for his son, blaming and here we are back to your fear, blaming, quote, the Common Core curriculum mandated in schools. No, you don't blame the curriculum. You say your son has a learning problem, and I don't mean a disability necessarily, has a learning problem with a tutor. But of course, she can't stop there because she's Jennifer Crumbly. So she says in the letter,
It's like something from Mayberry RFD.
in the letter, she said schools are schools, quote, where the kids come from illegal immigrant parents and, quote, don't care about learning. This is the way she ended her letter to Trump. As a female and a realtor, okay, you weren't a very good realtor, I guess, if you had to skip your car insurance payments to pay for a tutor, but whatever. Thank you for allowing my right to bear arms, Jennifer wrote. Allowing me to be protected if I show a home to someone with bad intentions. Thank you for respecting that amendment. Now, Jason, her husband, not to be outdone, posted a link on Facebook because she posted what she wrote to Trump on Facebook and commenting, quote, my wife can be spot on sometimes. So now we subsequently know that a woman who apparently was, excuse me, was James' previous wife, he's in arrears of all his child payment. So we're looking at something that is a pretty clear case that I think we are going to see something unusual. And I'm going to go on the record tonight as saying that I believe any time that, and also one thing I neglected to say in there, the gun was not secured at any point. It was just never locked up. That anyone who purchases a gun used for criminal purposes, that a family member uses, a child or someone underage, Junior was 15, should be charged with the manslaughter charges. They're an accomplice to the murder. And so, now you said, and I think you're right, the NRA will get involved, but it will be interesting.
I'm wondering if somebody's going to post bond for them.
$1 million is a lot.
For some reason, I think somebody will.
Now, remember, I don't know, and I didn't see that. And a very important thing is that cash bail, because normally bond can be posted as 10%, right? But I'm kind of thinking that the judge in this case, since he or she, I don't know whether it's a male or female judge, wanted to impose more of a penalty. I think probably it is cash.
Now,
so
I don't know the court system. Can
it
be challenged, that amount? Can that be challenged?
Yes, of course it can. However, and it will be, that's when if I were, I'm not a lawyer, but I covered a hell of a lot of court as a reporter. The first thing I would fully expect to do for the attorneys to do representing the Crumbleys is to try to get that reduced. But it's given all the evidence. And you notice I did not say at any point tonight, alleged killer, right? Because he killed them. Okay, yes, you're innocent until proven guilty. True. But in school shootings, as in some others, you're there, you're captured, you've got the gun, people identify you. What are you going to say? A doppelganger did it? No, you're not. So I think this one, now, so far, we haven't seen any Republicans come out supporting school shooters. right? I haven't seen any.
Not
So
yet.
this will be interesting.
Yeah.
But we have, I always yet, Brian, always yet. You didn't have your sexual fantasy, Marsha Taylor Greene. I
Those
hate
are
to
the
break,
sexual fantasy stuff. All I have is tension. There's no release with any of this stuff. What are you talking about?
and your other, you have the one blonde that you're kind of secretly in love with, and then you have the dark
Are you
haired
projecting?
no, you have the dark haired gun toting beauty, Lauren Boberbop, or whatever the hell her name is. But I don't know. And this week, she also had kind of a bad week. A couple reporters went around and informally asked, who's the dumbest member of Congress? And everybody named her. Now, but, we don't know what she's saying. Certainly, you wait for your, the crazed televangelical looking preacher, Matt Gaetz. And of course, you've got whatever the hell his name is, Gozard or Gokart.
Gosar.
Whatever his name
Paul
is.
Gosar.
Paul Gokart, yeah. Out there in Arizona. So, yeah, we don't know.
To find his
Now,
ass here.
now, notice something, though. This will also be an interesting test of the NRA. Have you heard anything from the NRA recently?
I haven't heard anything from them.
You know why? There is so much trouble. They had scouted with all the money. Their leaders. It's a
I
typical
think this
story.
is Gosar. I think that's Gosar.
That's
But I
Gokart. Yes, that is Gokart. It's a more flattering picture than what he looks like.
think- All right.
So, horrible, horrific America. We have to do something about guns.
And this has been said for how many years now?
Well, and this is why I want to lay tonight a little blame around on the Democrats too. I know you can only do what you could do, but here's if I were advising the Democrats, and I felt the way I do about this case, or any school shooting, or just the idea of gun violence, I would just say every day, hold a press conference. If you're against guns, hold a press conference every single day. Get it in the news. Get yourself on the record. Are you going to change things? I don't know. Now, what you're going to find out how many Democrats also get money and support, from the NRA. And there's very few people in the Democratic Party that call each other out. That's why I admire AOC so much, because yes, she's young, and they say, oh, no, she just calls it like she sees it. And that's not something done in politics a lot. Yes. And Nina, you're absolutely right. Tate 16, Madison 17, Hannah 14, and Justin 17.
And Justin, or was it? No, it's Tate. I think the
Tate.
football. He's the one that tried to disarm him.
Yes. And
A lot of guts. Like
and that's-
somebody during the Rittenhouse, but
that's
doesn't seem to count.
Well, what I find interesting is, as Nina I think was intimating there, they'll probably, they'll be, if indeed the NRA were to send money, they would send more money to the Crumblies and to Junior than they would to anyone else. And Brian,
Right, because don't forget, it's not so much they're after the kid; they are after us, and that's the
Well,
number one thing on their minds. They
and-
hate
and-
us more than we hate them, which is
and
hard
you're
to
a-
believe.
And you're absolutely correct. Brian, I don't know. I don't know if they hate us more. What they're able to do is act more on that hate than we do. Russia, yes, Trev.
That's true.
Now, here's what I think is interesting, and I don't know this. Part, I think, of the hesitancy, it was always said, well, they get money. No, I think part of the hesitancy on those who got the most money is that they realize, that they got Russian money, right? And that was no secret. And here they are saying, think about this, okay? Think about your buddy, Congressman Andrew. God damn it, communists are bad. No, I'm not saying but some of his own colleagues were getting money, Russian money, right?
Yeah, why isn't he going after Michael Flynn?
Well, just think about this, because they don't. Now, Anthony, I
Dave,
want
is
to.
your apartment on fire there or no?
Oh no, this is all the time. It's interesting. We have police sergeants. In fact, when I come back to your places, around your way, too damn quiet. This is city. I like urban living.
Yeah, you like the noise, huh?
I do. You get used to it.
I know.
Anyway, now, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but I do want to get to one of your favorites, who really had
Another
a bad
one of
week.
mine. Is this some
These are
type
all-
of fantasy you have for me here?
No. You've spoken highly of this gentleman over the years, and it doesn't surprise me with the way you feel about organized religion. That would be evangelical televangelist of the gospel of prosperity, the one and only Joel Osteen. Now, I've heard both Joel and his wife basically say, paraphrasing them, something like this: God wants you to have everything that you want, but you have to want it, and you have
So
to
you
go
don't
for
get it, right?
Right. So we're going to go back in time a little bit and then bring us up to date. So 7 years ago, at Osteen's church, which is the mega church.
I hope he's not related to Claude Osteen, the pitcher for the Dodgers.
Pitcher, no. Just although Osteen's not a common name, but I don't think it's any issue. And I did not know this. I mean, I was shocked as I looked at. I knew it was a big church. Do you know prior to the pandemic? I'm going to ask you this. I know you don't go to church services. I don't know if you ever did. I mean, I did when I was young. Would you like to guess, or do you know how many people on average attended? I'm not talking about that's live in person an Osteen service on Sunday.
I actually physically attended.
Yeah, not talking about the millions or whatever number watched him.
I hate even thinking about that guy. That son of a bitch. I mean, I don't like any of those types anyway. In
But
fact,
just give me a number. I mean, I would.
people who actually showed up.
In
Well,
other
he
words,
has to
in
have
that-
somebody in the audience. I know that.
Correct.
So I'm going to guess he gets 2,000 to 3,000.
You're a little bit short by 40,000. The average attendance was 42,000 people in the church. So 7 years ago, the church reports.
Yeah, I was thinking Osteen, Jewish.
7 years ago, the church reports a robbery. And in that robbery, $200,000 in cash and $400,000 in checks were taken. Of course, before we feel too sorry, they had full insurance, they announced, and they made the claim.
I wonder if Stormy Daniels had anything to do with that at all.
No, she's on the good side. She's on the occult side, not on the church side.
Well, she took on Trump. Jesus.
I know. That's why I like her. That's why I like her. Literally. No, you was the one type of talk. She also took him on. Remember, she was
Not physically
instrumental in-
touching the guy. I mean, he's gross.
Well, okay. Money makes you do strange things, Brian. Here we get back to money and Mr. Osteen. So roughly, $600,000 is missing, and of course you get reimbursed for it. However, let's go to November 10th this year, and a gentleman who only will identify himself as Justin, plumber, is working in a bathroom in the church, fixing it up, and suddenly, in his words, he comes across bags and bags of money, which is then reported, and the case is now under investigation by the Houston authorities, and they've already reported out that they're pretty sure that this money is related. So I don't know if they've totaled it, and it's related to the money that was said to be missing.
Dave, we have a comment here.
Yes. I can't argue with that. I do it that way. No argument, Kim.
It's only his shirt that's gross after he eats those meals that he
Kim.
posts.
My daddy said if you're gonna do something, be good at it. So when I'm gross, I'm good at it. What happens though with this money? So the question becomes, two big questions. What was the money doing in the wall? We don't know. We don't know. And secondly, if it indeed can be linked to any of the money, Mr. Osteen will be guilty of certainly fraudulent practices, claiming a false insurance claim for money. But the fascinating thing to me is, why was the money in the wall? We don't know that. And the final thing that of course, everybody's following is,
Well, isn't that kind of like Tony Soprano putting his cash out in the backyard? I mean, it's got to be laundered somehow. You can't put it in the bank. So that's a place. Who else would look in the wall?
And my favorite quote from Justin. He was on one of the talk shows, the radio talk shows in Houston, and they said, they asked him, said, did you ever think about just pocketing, some of that cash? He said, this was his answer. He said, no, I'm an honest man, and I wonder when this story is done, whether televangelist Joel Osteen will be able to say the same.
Kim was right about this one, Dave.
What?
At the beginning of that, Katrina, he wasn't going to take
anybody.
Absolutely. And then eventually,
Kim,
when
Kim,
the news
100,
broke,
100.
he changed his mind. All of a sudden, he found Jesus.
He also found a private jet. Look.
My real question: if he's got 40,000 members, Dave,
42,000
members. I want to know. In Europe, you asked me how many people were there. I want you to tell me how many members of that church or that congregation did he shtup?
Well,
0 or something greater than 0?
Well, I have to be honest with you. I don't know. But my guess is, when I look at these televangelists today, to me, Sinclair Lewis described them before there was really television. And if anybody hasn't read it or seen the film, I highly recommend Elmer Gantry, both the novel
I know you've said
and the
that.
film.
I do.
And basically, again, just like I feel very certain in calling Van Drew a charlatan politician. I feel very certain and very confident in calling Osteen, Swaggart. The list goes on.
Oh yeah, they're all
and on.
Tammy Faye.
Oh yeah, I mean they're all. It's like
Reverend Ike. Remember him?
They're all. I mean, look, anyone who gives money to someone like that, they deserve whatever happens to them in terms of their money missing. Now, I do know. I'm sure you have personal stories. In our family, there's a great story which I won't go into tonight about a preacher and one of our family members, and certainly interesting enough, that number I can tell you, there were 8 women at that time who he was, using your word, stopping. Certainly not. Now, which gets back, we're joking earlier about Trump and power and all this. Preachers have a lot of power too, and a lot of, I think, women, or I suppose if you have a female evangelist, men, groupies for God, maybe. I don't know. Anthony, I'm with you. I mean, there's something more than us. I don't know what it is. I'm not even caring to define it. I don't care. But I know it's not represented in organized religion. I know that. That much I do know. And so getting to this, the last thing, that, of course, the Supreme Court case. Now, for Roe v. Wade. Now, again, look, I think as soon as that 5th judge came in, because I've always said Roberts will have to do certain things that he just has to do as the Chief Justice, even if he doesn't.
And he's going to. Roberts is getting what he deserved. He wanted to have, he wants his name imprinted as far as history. He wanted to be the guy, and now he's done.
But it'll be like
yes,
the bad decisions.
Right. He'll have the R on the scarlet letter on there.
Yeah. So what happens is, yes, I think it's a done deal. Now, again, since I've been talking about people who had a bad week, Osteen, deservedly so. Cuomo, deservedly so. the parents of Junior, deservedly so. Related to this, a bad week
Canada, Daleen, that's the only place.
is your favorite senator with kind of a TV name. I believe her name is Senator Collins.
What's with her?
Well, here's
mean,
what happens. No, here's what
I
happens.
mean, I really do think she has Parkinson's.
Well, let me say this. She either, and I would say this if she were here with me, she either is the most naive person in America or really stupid or so smart that she tried to cover her tracks. She believed your favorite crying judge when he said, and so did your favorite. Well, it's kind of tough. I don't know if you like her better, Amy Coney Barrett. I don't know if you like her better than you do Boebert and Marcia Taylor Greene. But they both said in their hearings, in their confirmation hearings, and you go back and listen to it, when questioned by Democratic.
I don't even talk to Republican women, be honest with you.
Well, I know that. But here's what happens. They were both asked this question.
Period.
Do you consider Roe v. Wade settled law? And you know what both their responses were? Yes. Now, anybody with any sense knows that that wasn't going to happen. And so now Ms. Collins, she hasn't said anything. Now, the only thing I will say, in the words of the immortal, great American philosopher Yogi Berra, it ain't over till it's over now. And so, I think, yes, I think we should begin preparing for the worst, which is Roe v. Wade being completely overturned.
But good politically for the Democrats in 2022 if females come out and vote.
And there you are, right? And there you are.
But the Republicans, they're very quick to understand that and what they'll do. They'll go halfway, somehow.
What I'm wondering, is there are ways that you can settle that case for Mississippi and do damage to Roe, but not overturn it. And I'm wondering if that may be the avenue that they take. We'll know.
I'm not so sure that's the. I think the best thing might be that they do overturn it. Then you have this massive movement because you start going halfway. This is Roberts trying to, save. He blew it already.
Right. I mean, of course. But the thing that we all have to remember, I like that. You should actually patent that, Kim. Trump be gone. But since you brought it up, and we're talking about Trump now on the comments. Again, I'm also skeptical of many polls, but have you seen the polls recently? When it's Trump versus Biden one-on-one.
Have not, Dave. I have not.
Trump is winning all of them. Now, what makes absolutely no sense to me.
How does you have 8 million votes between the two, and now all of a sudden it's changed. I mean, did that just change?
A couple of things. Well, first of all, that's why we're skeptical.
That means at least 4 million had to change to make that happen.
Well, and did they ask all 4 million? No, that's why I'm very skeptical. Secondly, and I say this with absolute certainty, be cautious, be scared, be wary, but remember, a week in politics is like a decade in real life. Things can change so abruptly. But one thing I do wonder about is the economy is better. We have the virus under better control. So why isn't Biden getting the credit for that? And he doesn't really. I mean, the president, I think people overrate his or I hope someday her ability to control that. It's because some of the things that people really are concerned about, gas prices at the pump, they're going up. Now, what they've also revealed this week, Brian, I don't know if you were following it, there aren't really shortages. Just manufacturers are withholding stuff to drive prices up. Come on, is that new? Van Drew
Well,
would
hold
say
on. I want to say one. This is something that your son would probably discuss with
Right.
someone like me, but there is a cultural factor to prices. We talk about supply and demand. I just want to take a minute
sure. Well, I think it's on everybody's mind. I think it's good to,
now, because you have to look at two countries, and you have Japan and you have the United States. Well, and this kind of comes from the modern mystic, his type of thing, and I actually agree with it. But it's the idea that a lot of money is on people's hands right now, so they were able to spend right now. Now it's spending time, and these companies know it, and they're trying to bid up the prices. Where the same thing happened in Japan, but because of the cultural differences in Japan, that people say, no, we will refuse to play that game. And then their inflation is not going up. So I think a lot of this is the businesses trying to get as much as they can.
No, there's no question about
and
that.
the
Brian.
Americans are finally going to have to say no, but they're willing to spend. So I'm saying, yes, supply and demand is a major factor, but there is no doubt that culture
no.
has an influence
Look.
on prices, at least in
You know what,
Japan.
And now maybe I'm overly, what should I say, overly conscious of this fact. I understand why Biden said it, but I saw a remark this week that was just kind of upsetting. Not that Biden made it, but upsetting to me about American culture along those same lines you're talking about, is the fact that he basically said, "Don't worry, you'll be able to buy Christmas gifts for your kids." I
You
think
can
we
buy
get-
them now. It doesn't mean you're going to get them delivered.
Well, that's
That's another story. And you got to hope somebody
course
doesn't take it off your porch.
Well, now you bring up another interesting story, and the media is getting blasted for it. The truth is probably somewhere in between. Have you been reading the stories recently about the snatch and grabs?
Well, I do know the malls have been a place for snatch and grabs. Pretty soon, nobody's going to go to malls anyway.
But well, that's true. But also, where else is they're hitting? They're hitting Neiman and Marcus. They're hitting jewelry stores out in California, and you walk in, 20, 30 people, and all of a sudden, boom.
That is very unnerving to see that. I hate that boorish behavior. I just can't stand that.
Look, again.
Look, I'm not a fan of the rich, but this is again with the poor. It's just not good.
Well,
Not the way
no,
to
of
handle
course it's
things.
well, and you have to wonder. I'm not going to defend. I'm not going to defend Junior at all, because what he did, he deserves. If anyone ever deserved a death penalty, he's
Absolutely.
he's one of the people that does, I believe. But he is a victim, if you will, of the gun culture in America.
Yes.
And of course, the poor are victims of the idea of the rich have so much and we should.
And an example must be made.
And what's the number one? It's one of the number one shows in America right now is one called, I don't watch it, but it's called Succession, and it's about the wealthy. It's sort of like, to me, it smacks of another Dallas. Remember the show Dallas or Dynasty? Mm-hmm. And we have this. We have on one hand we have this repulsion, supposedly with the rich. On the other hand, we have the attraction. In TV, same with guns, cop shows. We are just, I'm sorry, I got to come back. Maybe our theme should be how much Dave disagrees with the American exceptionalism expressed by Congressman Van Drew. We are exceptional. We're the only country in the world that has damn killings of guns, the numbers that we have. Okay? What other country has that? I've been traveled all over the world, but I've been a lot of places, and you know what?
It's a fucked up country. Let me tell you, this is a fucked up country.
No question. Now, and we don't even get to some of the great threats. This is not a show for it. I admire Sandy. I admire you when you had Reality Report. I admire everyone because that's really, that could be what takes us down and probably will. And again, we're not going to get into that tonight because that's not the purpose.
That's
of the
always
show.
there, but we'll just we're not.
No, I don't want to.
We can't solve that problem unless this problem is solved.
But what I will say,
Because politically they won't move.
What I will say is, if Donald Trump or any Republican gets into office, we're a lot more distant from a solution than we are if the Democrats have it. Now, what may, again, but this thing, Brian, it's really pretty incredible. This system, we really are, literally, 50-50 in the Senate, right? I mean, really, that's not a myth. So you have to get, Democrats have to get everybody, and most of the time we can't get Manchin and we can't get Sinema, and so it's
I think
48.
we have to play dirty. I mean, we have to get Machiavellian with this.
Well, what do you, Brian? You say that, and I understand. So, what is Machiavellian? I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm not saying you don't. I don't know if is it Biden's.
Well, I'll tell you what Biden's got to do. He's got to get rid of Merrick Garland, just fire him, and get somebody that he thinks can start pulling the trigger on things.
I think you may see that if indeed it gets closer to the election.
Well, well, Dave, how long are we going to wait?
That's the problem, Brian.
And when is the day? Not you, Dave. I'm not picking on you, but
oh no,
if I were
understand
talking to Biden, what is the day you're going to worry? Is it 2 weeks from now? I say now is the time. Now is the time. You have to be aggressive. Either you come through or you don't.
I don't disagree with you, but guess what? Joe Biden doesn't call me. Joe Biden doesn't call you. Now, you really want something to worry about in terms of politics?
As if I had enough to worry already.
Well, we didn't talk. We're talking about things, kind of
Right.
political tonight, but not really. With the no, really, they were all tangential. Supreme Court, guns, evangelical preachers, and news. So let's delve into politics. We got a little bit of time left. We'll go to our side first. I don't know if you've been following, and I've just been loosely following. Who stands to be the presidential candidate if indeed Joe Biden chooses not to run or doesn't run? Obviously, it would be the vice president, correct? Is first in line.
One would think.
No, not one would think. You have to be cautious about it. Now, here's the problem. Her numbers are lower than
yes.
Biden's. And here's what bothers me. A lot of people who worked with her are leaving. And they're, people come and go in politics, but the comments they're saying are not good about her. They're sort of like the same thing they were saying about Amy Klobuchar.
You know what? I don't even care who it is, Dave. You got to do something. I want somebody to do something.
I understand that, but you got to get elected first. We have somebody there now. Now, you want somebody who's doing something right now? Okay.
Absolutely.
If Donald Trump, the other side of the coin. So we have, what I'm saying is that the Democrats, if it were to follow their front runner, not saying she will or emerge. You got a wounded president right now. His numbers may come up or not. He's elderly. Let's face it. I mean, when you're in your 80s with that pressure, God, it takes. I mean, look what it does to everybody who goes in there. We hope that he survives physically. We hope that he can be able to do it again mentally, health-wise. This is what I'm saying. So Kamala is, right now, based on everything we know, she may well be. And again, she has two factors automatically working against her: African American, a woman. Certainly, that worked. It certainly worked to Trump's advantage when Hillary ran. She wasn't an African American, but she was a woman, so it would be tough. She wouldn't be the first African American president, but she would be the first female, and certainly then the both combination there. Brian, I'm asking you again.
Gary's got a question for you there. Yeah.
What were they saying about her, Dave? Basically, they're saying that she's very disorganized, very difficult to work with, very critical of the staff, very much indicating that she's aware of her position and trying to get it. Now, Gary, because you're a really good student of politics too, and you and I've talked about this. The vice president really it might be the worst job, in politics, because, you're not this, you're not that. But I think, so that's what they're saying. Now, again, remember, that's people who are leaving her employees saying it. So I don't know what the numbers are, but the reports coming out of there are not good. And already you're seeing Democrats down here, they're desperate. They're desperate because they know, as most people indicated tonight, that out there looming is that great white whale known as Donald Trump. But let's say Trump, for whatever reason, can't run. Who do you see right now as the Republican front runner? I see one. Do you see one, Brian?
We know one of them who wants to be it badly, and
Who's that?
DeSantis.
DeSantis is everything's okay. Did you see what he did this week?
Yes, horrible.
What did he do?
Well, he wants to form his own state militia of some sort.
Correct.
And
it'll
he
be
doesn't
his-
like the fact that they're telling their National Guard what to do for vaccinations.
He would have his personal army. Now, where does that come from? Well, in World War II, there were provisions for you to do that because, of course, you needed some protection if indeed we were invaded. But that has not been, no governor has used that since 1947. Now, can he? I don't know. Will he? We don't know that either. But certainly, just by advancing it, and if he were to get it, do you
Yeah,
imagine
we don't have any
Republicans-
anti-gay stuff. That's not. We're not going to do that.
No,
I
what
agree
I'm
with
saying.
that dealing. Yeah.
No, so what happens is, Brian, if indeed he were able to do that, many states will follow up with that. Republican states. I certainly think South Dakota's already sent their guard to the border. That other woman out there you have a passion for. Abbott in Texas will do it. And it's just, look, we're fucked. Now, when we say we're fucked, does that mean we're done? No, we're not done. But it's going to take some really creative ideas. And Brian, I think you're right. Even though your back is itching and obviously you're cold and you put on your sweatshirt, and now I don't have any idea what you're doing. But right now, I would have to say that they have to get some indictments. Merrick Garland
Right.
and Justice
Yeah,
Department have to get
he's
some.
living on one. It's like living on one
Not-
riff. He's
not-
living on one indictment. And
but and
I
you've got
think
all
he's
this-
afraid. He's like these other
I-
Republicans who are afraid to say anything against Trump. They're afraid
Well,
that they're going to get knocked
I-
off.
Well, yes, but I don't. I mean, I don't know Merrick Garland. I
Well,
don't
you
know
saw him when he was in front of the Senate, and when they were grilling him, the Republicans. Man, I never saw such milk toast in my life.
Sometimes, and again, the law is not a place for bluster. It's a place to win. Okay. That's really not a place. A place for bluster in the law is when you're in front of a jury. Then, then maybe you can shape something up. So we just have to, I guess, what else do? We hope, we wait, but certainly it's very frustrating. Okay, so Cuomo goes down for Me Too. Trump survives. I mean, Trump survives everything at this point. And how many you guys have added since he's left office? They've added 3 investigations to it, to what he was facing when he came out. No charges yet, no indictments yet, nothing, right? And so people begin to get frustrated if you're on our side. But on the other side, people are saying, see, there was nothing wrong. There was nothing wrong. If he did something wrong, he'd be there. He'd be in prison. He would be this. He would be that. And right now, he is still the power behind everything. The power in the Republican Party. Now, the only person that could rival him, but he's smart enough not to go head to head, and he doesn't want the presidency, is McConnell. Okay, McConnell doesn't care about anything except winning. He's like the anti-Trump. Trump cares about he wants to win, but he cares about every remark, that's made about him. You can say whatever you want.
And
McConnell does.
McConnell, it's not like just that he wants to win. He, like so many other Republicans, he just despises people like us and Democrats. He wants it gone from this country.
Well, and again, I'm certainly not going to sit here and defend
there's definitely, it's like a psychosis going on, and this is
they believe, Brian. It's very simple. It does. If you believe something, okay, if you believe something, you believe it, and they believe that they are the answer. They are the truth. Anyone who opposes them is not worthy. They certainly are no fan of women.
But I think it's, as we've discussed this many times, Dave, this is born out of racism, and specifically against African Americans. And they're seeing the browning of the country. I've said it over and over again. This is it's veiled, but we know exactly why they're doing it.
Well,
and it's wrong, and we all know that it's wrong. And they won't say it, although some of them are, come right out and say it. But that's what they're doing. And so all this,
well, of course they are.
Yeah.
They they have no plan other. They have no plan other than to get power, and when they get it, they don't know what to do with it. You know what I mean? They just want it. They don't change anything necessarily, because part of what was, part of the protections and all this balance and everything that the founding fathers put into the government, maybe the Constitution has served us. I don't think it served us that well, but even if you think so, maybe it's time to relook things in terms of that. For example, I will say this: if you don't repeal the filibuster, don't get rid of it, you're not going to get a Voting Rights Act.
They're not going to repeal it because they can't.
If you can't get it repealed, you can't get it changed, then that's a huge victory for Republicans. Okay?
And they will do it when they're in power.
Well, if they needed to. Then also, if indeed the court comes out as I anticipate it will, 5-4, going against the will, I think I say I'm not enamored with polls. I don't necessarily believe them, and I quote them because that's all we have out there. But I think it was like 75% of the American people, roughly, feel that Roe v. Wade should be left alone. So if that's true, even again, the Republicans are about 33% of the country. So a third of the people are going to rule against the other 2/3. Could be. So if you don't expand that Supreme Court, and I'm not going to buy the argument, Brian, which is down here all the time. Well, if you do it, they'll do it. Well, guess what? If you don't do it, you won't be around. They won't need to do it because they have it right now. They don't need to expand.
Right. They don't need to do anything. Right.
They don't need to do anything right now. So of course they're going to go back, trying to talk about the Roosevelt years, and not going to do that. If we don't do something about gerrymandering,
it's done.
Then they will continue.
No, they'll still not only continue, they will solidify, and then it's over with, as most people in this chat room think.
Well, it was, I really haven't studied, I know what gerrymandering is, but when I was working at the museum and John Lewis popped in a few times, and he knew that I was moving, or Judy and I were moving to Atlanta, and he said, I should be your congressman, and so he had an aide show me. And they literally did this, this kind of thing, right? To get his district. So he had every, black person was there, but every white person was not in his district, figuring, and that was just the way it started.
Wait, Dave, there's a comment here about Ghislaine, whatever her name is, from Epstein.
Oh,
I hear that the trial's not going very well. The defense attorney is really tearing these people apart, and they're making mistakes. So I don't know what's going to happen there either.
Yeah, well, we don't. Look, we know from plain records, Donald Trump took flights to
I showed those records, by the way. they were out there somewhere, and I got flagged on the
Well, I know.
Head in the Box channel.
We,
but I
we
put
know
them
that
out
we
there.
know that Bill Clinton made trips there.
Steven
we
Pinker
know-
was on one of the flights, believe it or
We
not.
know. Yeah. Well, look.
Now, don't forget, Epstein was an intelligent guy, and there was that other side of him too.
All right, but let's be honest. Come on. You really think there's anybody who moves in those circles who didn't know what Epstein was doing? Of course not.
Not right.
And again, I don't. Maybe this is my atonement for not always listening to my father. When I was young, it's not what we do. And he said it.
Dershowitz was on those flights.
These things,
He knew.
these things come back to you. He said, "Son, you are who you hang with." Steve Pinker's a very smart guy, but if you got on
So
the
you
plane,
hang with Stormy Daniels. What is that supposed
I
to
have
say?
I have no problem with that. I have no problem with that. I defend her right to be Stormy, so I don't have a problem with that. But the idea being that certainly Bill Clinton.
Somehow, though, I just couldn't see you falling in love with Emma Goldman 100 years ago. I just don't know about that.
Well, Emma Goldman, I could fall in love with her mind.
Well, you know what she said, though, about guys? They asked her what type of man she liked. She says, I'll take any man with balls as long as he's honest.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and there we are. There's a good way to close it down. We got a couple minutes. The question becomes in politics, all politicians lie. They slant. They paint the picture. But in my lifetime, I've never seen them, community of politicians, being the Republicans, really distort the basic reality as much as these people do. And that would be fine if everybody could see that they are distorting the reality. But 74 million people who voted didn't see it. And that's a nice base to build on. That's a nice base to build on. And some of these things that are happening out there are driving, more people maybe to them. As I said, for me politically, it's all about the suburbs because the cities are going to go Democrat, the rural areas are going to go Republican, and they're starting to get some suburban issues in there. Crime is a huge one. Self-protection is a huge one. Schools
And never
are huge.
underestimate the ignorance of the American voter.
Well, thank you, Will Rogers. Yeah.
Did
So,
he actually say it that way? I was just
there was something. No, he said something to that effect.
something like that, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean,
I'll take
well,
that as a
you know,
compliment.
Oh, it is. It is. If anybody gets close to, and again, that's something we need to go back and look at. Some of the wise people that have been here and what they've said before probably still applies. Mark Twain was brilliant at his characterization of politicians. Certainly, so was Will Rogers. I mentioned earlier the novelist Sinclair Lewis. He wrote the Donald Trump story in "It Can't Happen Here." So, but I do think, and Brian, I think this is very important for all of us. When we look at the past, we've never had social media, and that is the big difference. I was told, so maybe somebody who knows more about it than I can, but I was told that if you write something, it can be around the world in 7 seconds.
And now it certainly can. Well, Dave, I appreciate you coming by.
Thank
And
you.
we
I always enjoy it.
Appreciate everybody coming by. I do have something to leave us with, a little bit different this time. For those who've been watching what's going on in Russia, I'm not going to talk about the troops, but I am going to talk about Morgenstern, who is, their number one hip hop guy. And
After Van Drew said not to do this, you're going to go
right,
there.
right. You got a point. You actually do have a point. But Morgenstern, who's just turned 24, I think, or will turn 24, he is, even in Europe, he's very, very popular. But he made the mistake of saying something like, we spend too much for our Patriotic Day parades, meaning, for World War II. And he's actually right. Now, he had to apologize, of course, to Putin, and apparently there was so much pressure on him that they were putting on pressure on him, saying that his videos were promoting narcotics, which was a lie. There's no evidence of it at all. So he has to take off. He and his wife, or his girlfriend, took off to the Emirates, and it looks like he's going to have to stay outside of the country. So I'm going to leave you with Morgenstern. I know it's going to be hip-hop, but remember, he didn't promote narcotics. He's just doing what he does. So we'll leave you with Morgenstern, who's somewhere in the Emirates trying to avoid Novichok and things like that. Who knows if he'll be alive? I shouldn't even joke. So we'll see.
Делать деньги вот так. Композитор Мишель Тагирович на бите. Делать деньги вот так. Деньги вот так. Делать деньги вот так. Деньги. Делать деньги, блядь, вот так. Пальцем щелкай деньги в банк. Самый дикий, это факт. Мной гордился бы мой папа. Делать деньги, блядь, вот так. Пальцем щелкай деньги в банк. Самый дикий, это факт. Мной гордился бы мой папа. Свежий молодой, будто Джейко. Снова собирают бэнкролл. Суки меня любят, будто Фрэнко. Не буду меня сглаживать, ты мой флоу. Залетай в бит, будто папа. Как так, твоя сука, дэнс, это как папа. Залетай в бит, будто папа. Шат-шат, твоя суки, в рот, это шат-шат. Парень, она вага по деталям, я тебе не угодил. Это не то, чего ты ждал, и, сука, я тебе не шут. Эти ублюдки понимают, ты зерок второй сезон, а не пойти бы тебе нахуй. Может, это дико для тебя был. Так навали дизов и пошел вон. Самый дикий был, я им остаюсь. И правила игры опять переверну.